big day at the Kerang Show and Shine. Heaps of cars, plenty to see and do. That was actually a model of a train, believe it or not. Very exciting stuff, unusual too. But a feature of the show was the invite category for motorcycles. We'll have a look in the shed in a sec, but have a look at all these cars that turned up. Bit of everything, for something for everyone. This is the invite section. The idea behind this was to attract bikes that fit one of three categories, either lusty, rusty or trusty. Lusty bikes were bikes in any condition, but were highly desirable, and this is certainly one of them. The kerangutang was a 1953 Norton Dominator frame with an Indian Scout 750 motor attached. It was built in the late 60s, in Kerang in Victoria by an apprentice auto electrician. It's been running on the road ever since, but the quality of the bike itself was just unbelievable. It looks like it's meant to be that way, it almost looks factory. It's a bike that gets ridden all the time. It's seen at just about every show and shine or motorcycle event across Australia, and has been running and doing its job for many years. It certainly was a standout in this show, certainly one of the most desirable bikes there. It won its class, and it was great that we were able to bring that bike out. Here's another bike, very nice sort of bike, one you definitely want to have. It's a BSA chopper, built locally, and you can see the work that's gone into this. It started just with a hardtail frame. The actual BSA engine came from Canada. It's amazing what you can pick up on the net. But this again was a lovely bike. Period correct for the style of chopper it is, and done to a very high standard. Who wouldn't want one of these sitting in their shed? The attention to detail is just unbelievable. This was a great little bike. It's a dirt drag bike, Honda CB 550 engine in it. It raced for many years around here. Originally started as a 250cc bike. You'll notice it's got a BSA Bantam front end on it. The frame has been stretched to accommodate the larger engine. It was good to see this bike out and about. Well worth bringing into the shed for people to see. It certainly attracted a lot of attention and brought back a lot of memories for people familiar with this bike. Here's another terrific bike. This one, its category. It's a Royal Enfield VTwin. The bike was ridden to the event. It's built to be ridden. And when you look at it, it's been restored, but not to a ridiculous standard. It's almost like it's come off the showroom floor back in the day when it was new. The patina on this bike is outstanding, and certainly one you'd love to have in your own shed. Runs beautifully. But everything about that bike is correct. It's just a great example of a very rare bike. Here's another bike, very well done. It's a Matisse Triumph. Have a look at the standard of this. The chrome ollie frame, the proper Matisse body parts, tank and seat. This is a style of bike that Steve McQueen rode. It was great to see this one out and about. Again, another bike you'd just love to have in your shed. Not too many of them around. This is an original TT 500, or, well, not actually original. It's in the condition that it was parked in. So yes, there's been some changes made over the years, but it's a very nice little bike. It sounds sensational when it runs. It's still there with its dings and everything else. Once again, the condition of the bike is not always important. It's an attractive bike as it is, and it certainly fits that lusty category. You'd love to take that home. You'd have a lot of fun on it. This is another Muggin CR250 replica. This bike was immaculate. It's a replica and it's been built to a very high standard. It's as good as new. Would not be too many in that condition anywhere in the world. As far as dirt bikes go, the two-stroke Hondas are very, very collectible. Any of the big bore two-strokes are collectible. This is a 250, but up to the 500 cc's is where the collectors tend to be. Again, how can you not like this bike? The Vincent Black Shadow, in very, very good condition. It has had a restoration at some stage, but it was a lot of years ago, and it's held up very well. This is a bike that is frequently ridden. It's done a lot of miles in its lifetime, but still very desirable bike. The original Smith's gauges. They really are a work of art, these Vincents. It's another won its category at the show, so it should. Oh, this was a terrific bike, a Honda CBX 6-cylinder. This is a recent restoration, fully done from the ground up. But it's as good as the day it came out of the showroom. It's a credit to the owner, the fella that built it. It does get ridden now. But it's an unusual bike too. The 6-cylinder Hondas were really not necessary, but they existed, and because they existed, they are quite interesting and quite collectible. Good to see a bike like this out and about. The judges really did like that bike and praised it for its originality. It is just as it came out of the shop. Here's another beauty, BSA. Now this is an original competition bike. An interesting feature of this bike, when you have a look at the seat, you'll see there's a grab strap on it. I'll point it out when we get to it. But this bike was built for off-road competition. Now you can just see that grab strap now. That's how they came in the factory, to help them lift them out of the mud. And have a look at the guards. No sides on the guards, pretty good indicator that this bike was built for off-road use. Very, very desirable bike, very, very clean bike, immaculately presented. How could you not want to have this sitting in your shed? It's a beauty. Now this was something very special. It's came in under the rusty category, if you like, but if you have a look at it, it's a K-Series Harley Davidson Sportster, very, very rare. This one is in as found condition, but the bike's got enormous value as it is. It certainly drew a lot of comments. Not many people have seen these K-Series Harleys, and here was one in the flesh. I mean, if you got that bike running and left it the way it was, you'd still have something very special. So it was great to get this sort of bike out of the sheds and on display for people to see. People often think that unless they're shiny, they've got no value, but that's just not the case. Original bikes do have a place, and bikes ready for restoration do have a place. They can be every bit as desirable as the best the best restored bike on the floor. And I think this is an example of a bike that many people would love to find lying around. It's got its own appeal just in its appearance as it is, but it's all there. Wouldn't take much to get that thing running. Very, very rare bike in Australia, the K-Series Sportsters. See, before the Peanut Tank, it was a larger version of the Peanut Tank, not seen in any other Sportster other than these. There's actually a photo of Elvis Presley sitting on one of these back in the day. Oh, little monkey bike. What a beauty. Now this thing looks brand new. When you get up close to it, it's just a ripper. Very desirable little bike. The condition is just incredible. Credit to the owner. Now here's probably the pick of the bunch. 1928 Brough Superior in original condition. Have a look at the leather saddlebags, they're still there. Leather seats original. Everything on this bike is original. It's an amazing bike. A feature of this bike, when you have a look, when we get down the back, you'll see that it's actually got rear swing arm suspension. Was not very common at all in 1928, and I don't think there's another Brough from 1928 in the world that has it. This is a very, very rare bike, perhaps one of one. They were made to order by the Brough motorcycles, so there was variations in them. This had the 750cc motor, which is also quite early in Brough's history. They were sold as the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles with the blessing of Rolls-Royce. Just the quality in them was so remarkable that Rolls-Royce were happy for the Brough factory to trade on their name. This is a bike that needs no restoration. It actually needs to stay the way it is. It was the pick of all the bikes in the shed on the day, no doubt about it. Not just for rarity, but for completeness. It's all sitting there. Again, a bike that probably wouldn't come out unless we had that idea of they could be rusty. We still want to see them. This is a bike that will probably never ever be restored because it's got too much value as it is. They're probably the most collectible bike in the world, the Broughs. And just to see this bike the way it is, in terms of what was correct on these bikes at the time, right down to the hand grips, the foot pegs, all those little bits that get changed over the years, and you wonder what they had. Now, here's a very unusual Harley Davidson as well, in good nick too. But it's a Super Glide. If you have a look at it though, it's got the shovel engine in it. It's actually the Evolution style frame, but this was made right at the turnover. So it came out of the factory with a shovel head engine in it, rather than the Evolution engine, which makes this bike quite unique. Now the other category we had was for trusty bikes, and they were bikes that had done a lot of miles. This bike sort of met two criteria. It's a desirable bike because of its rarity, but it's also got a history of doing a hell of a lot of miles. This is probably a 200,000 mile bike. Still running, still going, and still in very good condition. This is a Honda VT 1000, I believe. Again, it's a race replica of the bikes that were built to take on Ducati and Harley in the Bears series overseas, and they did it very well. This really is quite a nice bike. Very well presented. The size of them when you get near them compared to 500cc race bike, they are literally double the size. Now this is a WLJ Harley Davidson from the 1950s. Beautifully restored. Very, very rare because it's not the military model, it's a civilian model. The hint to it being a civilian model is that it's got the deep guards. The wartime ones had more open guards. The J model denotes that it was for delivery in the Pacific. We don't know where this bike was built, but we do know that it came out of Indonesia. Little BSA Bantam Bushman. It's a replica made based on a bike that was a competition bike put out by BSA as a Bushman, and it featured in an article in a motorcycle magazine many years ago. The information from that article is what this restoration has been built on. It's built to the specifications of the original. This is a little BMW Single Cylinder. Very nice little bike. I don't know a lot about this bike, but I do know it comes from Swan Hill in Victoria. It is seen around at a lot of our local shows, and it's always very well presented. It was great to see it there on the day. This is a Matchless. Now the story behind this bike was that it was given to the owner by his wife as a 50th birthday present, and I can't think of a better reason or a better story to include a bike in a show than that. This is a Motor Guzzi, fits the trusty category. It's an original bike, and it's great to see these bikes out doing a lot of miles, but it's also really good to see just how good the factory finish was on these bikes back in the day. This is a bike that certainly gets ridden. It was ridden on the day and has done a lot of miles, and looks like it will continue to do so. This is a very original shovel. Another bike that fits that trusty category. Been out and about doing its job ever since it was new. It's great to see these bikes with the patina developing on them over the years. It's been well cared for, but time still takes its toll. It doesn't detract from the bike. Here's another bike that's done a lot of miles, a trusty bike. This bike was bought new by the owner. It's been all over Australia, all throughout outback Australia, many times. And it's good to see them coming out of the shed. It's been stored for quite a while, but this is still a running bike. Needs a battery and push the button and off you'd go again. And based on its history, it'll get you around Australia again. It's a little BSA Bantam. Now, the interesting thing about this bike is the lowers on the fairing. And the story with that is it was believed to be a bike that was bought and used by the district nurses in the area. Another very nice BSA. Again, it's a bike that gets ridden. This is a Sportster that was actually bought by a person from Kahuna on a trip to America some time ago. He bought the bike back with him and sold it to its current owner. It's been laid up in a shed for the last 6 years, but it's great to see it come out. Here's an interesting bike, probably in the trusty category, if you like. It's a turbocharged Posty. Put together obviously with the intention of moving rather than looking. It's a functional bike rather than a aesthetically pleasing bike, but that's part of its character. And the same owner has done this, taken a rotary engine out of a generator from farm machinery, put it in a little Dexter frame, and this bike really hums when you get it going. It's got a wonderful sound to it. Certainly attracted a lot of attention on the day, and in the rusty category. Here's another rusty one. It's actually a Posty chopper, also by the same owner as the previous two bikes. They function, and there's a bit of creativity there. So it's interesting that you can see a bike like this up against some of the more outstanding bikes that we've seen previously. This is an interesting bike. It's a Melvin Star. These bicycles were used by water bailiffs throughout the irrigation district. We're in the irrigation area, so these were quite common. But for the amount that was in the area originally, you don't see very many of them in collections or anywhere. So it was good to have this one out and about, and certainly a lot of people remembered these bikes, putting up and down the channels. We also had a display of old outboard engines. They're quite interesting when you see them. The owner of these ones, he's actually got a large collection. He just bought a few in. He also owns all these Knickknacks. Now, a feature of all these collectibles was their condition. If you have a look at them, they're stunning. But the other thing too is, when you see industrial items together, it does give you an idea for colour schemes. You'll see the hammer tone paint, the blue with the black and the gold. They all seem to go together. We also had a very good display of push bikes. Older push bikes. There was one quite unusual bike, a looped frame bike. I'm not sure if we get a picture of it here, but these were well worth seeing. People were in and out of the exhibit all day. It really was a great day, and certainly bigger and better things next year. We'll follow the same principles, lusty, rusty and trusty, and we'll be travelling around trying to locate a collection of bikes to put up again for people to view next year.
Got to do it because otherwise you'll go berserk like bored.